everyone, welcome to EduDose. So today we are going to start a new chapter, that is Nationalism in India. This is the second chapter of our history, and this is the first chapter that we are going to learn about in the history book. So let's start. So what is the meaning of nationalism? Let's understand that first. So before we move forward, please subscribe to EduDose and like, share, comment. Comment below if you have any doubt, any query about the lesson or anything else. I will answer your question within 1 hour, and please subscribe to EduDose to get these online free education with no paid courses with the quality content, and please share it with your friends and families. So let's move forward, that we are going to discuss that what is the meaning of nationalism. So first let's wrap up that what are the topics that we are going to cover in this session. So we are first seeing that what is nationalism, that what is the meaning of nationalism, what does nationalism mean, then how the nationalism came in India. The full explanation will be given to you, and there will be some tricks and tactics so that you can learn this chapter through a story. I will give you a full format story and some tricks to remember, that how you should remember the dates of the chapter and how you should remember the places that where the satyagraha movements were done. I will give you the full tricks and tactics to revise and to learn this and to remember this chapter easily. So next we will go through the World War, that what was the impact of World War on India, a new leader and a new mode. This is a very important topic that we are going to learn today, and the satyagraha movements that were rearranged by the Mahatma Gandhi. So let's move forward and let's talk about that what is nationalism. So what is nationalism? Nationalism, you can say it is an ideology. So nationalism, this is the perfect simple definition, but it is somehow difficult. So I'll give you a simple definition. That nationalism is a proud feeling. You can say that nationalism is a proud feeling towards where we live or towards the nation of our. So you can say the proud feeling that where we live is nationalism, and we are considering the state first and then the religion of ours. If we take an example, we live in India, so if I am stating that I have a feeling of nationalism, so I will consider myself first Indian. Then I will tell you that I am a Bihari, or I am from Himachal Pradesh, I am from Kashmir. So first we will consider ourselves Indian, then our religion, our caste, our race will come. So the feeling towards the proud feeling towards our nation, and considering that we are Indian first, then Kashmiri, Himachal Pradeshi. So that feeling towards the nation, the loyalty towards the nation, the devotion towards the nation is what nationalism. So I have given you a very simple definition to understood the nationalism, because when many children are confused, because they get confused between nationalism, socialism, because there are so many words relating to nationalism. So I have given you a very brief and very sorted definition of nationalism, so I think you have understood. So let's move forward and discuss that how nationalism came in India. So first of all, we have to discuss that how nationalism came in India. So as we have learned in our earlier chapter, the nationalism in Europe, so let's take an example that how nationalism came in Europe. So how nationalism came in Europe? What was the first thing that people have a feeling of nationalism towards their nation? What was the thing that came and give a feeling of nationalism in the people's mind? So the first expression that gave people nationalism feeling was French Revolution. So this revolution was the first clear expression of nationalism in the people's mind of Europe. So as French Revolution was the first clear expression, first sign of nationalism in Europe, the same thing happened in India. So let's talk about that how nationalism came in India. So in India, the nationalism came in three phases. So have you thought that 1600s, in the 1600s the Britishers came in India, and when the Britishers came, we have a feeling of nationalism. So at the time in 1885, we have a feeling, we have a mild feeling in our minds that we are the people of India, we are the people of our country, we should save our country, we should devote ourselves to our country. So from the starting of 1815, we have a mild feeling in our minds that we should do something for our country to save our country from the Britishers. So I'll give you a story, lookout story, to understand that why we till 1885, why nationalism doesn't came in our minds. So till 1885, the Mughals only ruled, means the more rule over the country was of the Mughals only. So till the 1885, from 1600s to 1885, the Mughals only ruled. The more rule of the Mughals were there over India. So when the Mughals rule, so the nationalism not came in our minds that the Britishers were not ruling our country. So what were the Britishers doing at that time? So Britishers were interfering in the economic relationship. You can say that Britishers were economically interfering between the Mughals, between the economic crisis were theirs, and economically the Mughal rule was interfered by the Britishers. So then when the Britishers interfered politically between the people and between the nation, between the Mughal emperors, the people have a feeling of nationalism. The feeling of nationalism came in the minds of people only when the Britishers interfered between the political situation of our country. So just remember one thing, that when Britishers came, I'll give you a recap of this thing, that the story was in 1600s the Britishers came in 1600s till 1885 Mughals ruled, and then you can say that till 1885 Britishers interfered between our country in economically, means in the markets only they are going to be interfere. But after 1885, or you can say in between 1885, they interfered politically. When they started interfering politically, our people, our nation's people, have started a feeling of nationalism in their minds, because they were started interfering politically. The new rules, new guides, new taxes were introduced by them, so they were now interfering between the nation's politics, and they were going to overthrow us by politically. So the people are having a mild feeling of nationalism in their minds by the moderate phase. So now the nationalism's moderate phase starts when the people, or when the Britishers started interfering between our country's political situation. The people's nationalism feeling came in their minds. So as we have understood that the first clear expression in Europe was the French Revolution, but in India's case it was the freedom struggle of 1857. The freedom struggle of 1857 was the story of Rani Lakshmi Bai, that was I was talking about. So though the Britishers came in 1600s, but they didn't interfere between the political situation. But when they started politically interfering between our country's nation, then the people have a feeling of nationalism. The nationalism feeling came in our people's mind, and then the first clear expression, you can say the first expression through which the nationalism in India came, was the story of Rani Lakshmi Bai. The story of Rani Lakshmi Bai was the time of 1857. So in 1857 British government came. 1887 British government came. So when the British government came, it started to make political parties. The British government started making political parties. Then through which the nationalism feeling was coming towards our nation, that we should do something, we should devote ourselves to our country to save our country from the Britishers. So then our revolutionaries started thinking of that we should also make political parties to save our country from the Britishers, and we should do something to save our country. So while in the moderate phase, you can say the INC, the Indian National Congress, was made by the revolutionaries of our country. The Indian National Congress was made in 1885. You should write these notes with me only, because if you are going to write these notes after the lecture, you will not be able to remember. So please write it with me only. So in the 1960s, the extremist, you can only remember that the extremist was the aggressive. When people started fighting, they started murdering themselves and they started murdering others, the aggressive phase came. So the nationalism was of three phases: moderate, extremist, and Gandhian. So the Gandhian phase was like we have to study in this chapter only. The Gandhian phase we are going to study in this chapter. So our chapter will start from 1915 and will end at 1947. So let's start and get a brief story of Gandhian phase. So in the nationalism in Europe, we have seen that there were modern states when the nationalism was done. So there were modern states, and these modern states were converted into what? Nation states. After the nationalism, these modern states were converted into nation states. So because of the formation of nation states, the people of Europe were now understanding that what were they? The three things that have a clear image in their mind were that what were they, and what was their identity, what were the sense of belonging, means what is the sense of belongingness, what is the common thing between them. They got to understand after nationalism came in Europe, and the formation of nation states were the resultant of these 3 points. These 3 points are very important, just remember it. And new symbols, there were new symbols, new flags, new icons, forged new links between them and refined boundaries of the communities because of the new symbols. Now the most of the countries have nationalism, but there was a very long process. So India is also an example of the long process of nationalism. So let's think about it and let's learn that how nationalism came in India. So as we have seen, the nationalism came in Europe and result was what? Nation states. The result of the nationalism in Europe was nation states. So as the result of nationalism in Europe was nation states, the same thing happened. The nationalism in India. So as we have understood that before the nationalism in India, India was what? Colony. You can say colony. Colony of whom? British government. It was the colony of British government. So as we know that before it was colony of British government, and after the nationalism came, the result was what? The anti-colonial movements. After nationalism came in India, the result of the nationalism was anti-colonial movement. You should remember it. So these 2 points are very important, that what were the situation before the nationalism and what was the situation after nationalism. So in Europe, before situation was modern states, after situation was nation state. And in nationalism in India, before situation was colony of British government, and the after situation was anti-colonial movements. So I think you have understood, and I have given you a very clear picture of the nationalism in Europe and nationalism in India. I am just giving you a link between these 2 chapters so that you can have a very clear image and have a very conceptual clarity of these 2 chapters by linking towards them. So as we have understood that in the nationalism in Europe, modern states were there and it was converted into nation states. And in India, colonial rule or colony by the British government, and they were converted into what? Anti-colonial movements. So, as we have learned that in the nationalism in Europe, the first expression that nationalism came in Europe was what? French Revolution. But in India, what was the thing that merged the people of India towards a group that have came a feeling of nationalism? What was the thing that came in people's mind and they forced into a group so that they can rule against the country, or they can just remove the people, remove the Britishers from our country? So what was the thing? What was that feeling? So the feeling was the common struggle of oppression. You can say the common struggle of oppression. So the common struggle of oppression, that means the struggle was for every people, that not only the rich, not only the poor, the same struggle all the people have to suffer was the oppression. Oppression means to suppress, means the suppression of the people by the British governments was the common struggle between the people of India, and it united the people of India. So the common struggle united the people of India, and but there was a different thing between the nationalism in Europe and the nationalism in India. So the thing was, they have a common struggle of what? Oppression. But the thing was that every class, there was rich class, you can say, and there was poor class, there were middle class. So every class of the society were having different effects, that the poor will have a different effect, the rich will have a different effects of the British rule were different. So as the common struggle of oppression came and united the people of India, they have a feeling, the feeling of nationalism merged or came into the minds of people. So Congress tried to force these groups into one but failed. Because of Gandhiji, the Congress tried but failed. So let's talk about it, that if the Congress failed, how the people were united. So in the 1885, the INC, means the Indian National Congress, were made by what? The INC was made by revolutionaries. So in the time of 1885, the INC was made. So in 1885, the revolutionaries only have a feeling of nationalism. But in the Gandhian phase, you can say by the time of 1919, every class and every people, each and every class, each and every race were having a feeling of nationalism towards their country. They want that the Britishers should be thrown out of our country and we should devote ourselves towards our country. So by the time of 1919, every class, every group, every tribal group also have a feeling of nationalism. So that's it for today, and in the next session we will discuss about that what was the impact of the First World War on India, what were the things that was needed in the First World War, and the satyagrahas that were arranged by Mahatma Gandhi we will discuss in deep. Let's meet again. Subscribe to EduDose, like, share and comment if you have any query, any doubt. Thank you.